Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. I saw some of you a few weeks ago, and then I saw some of you a few weeks before that. So it's good to see everyone. Let's take a moment for just a quick centering practice. So closing your eyes, turning your attention within. Give your awareness to your breath and take 2 to 3 full, comfortable breaths. And on each exhale, allow yourself to feel more deeply into the body, more deeply within. Giving yourself permission to let go of any distractions, and giving yourself permission to just be attentive to the breath in this moment as it moves in and out of the body. And then on the next 3 exhalations, on each individual exhalation, in your mind, hear and feel the syllable Om, just rolling with the breath on the exhale. Do this 3 times. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Om, peace. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the idea of choosing light over darkness. And we have to remember, as yogis, that is our job. As long as we are embodied, as long as we are alive, our job is to always choose light over darkness to the best of our ability, with whatever strength that we have. Yogananda, in Autobiography of a Yogi, I believe it's the chapter on the law of miracles, he had said that creation, so the experiences that we have, is light and shadow both. Otherwise, no picture is possible. So creation is light and shadow both. Otherwise, no picture is possible. And this is important to remember because I think it's easy for us to get caught up in the idea that um, we should only and ever always experience peace and light and well-being and agreement and agreeableness in this world. But as Yogananda says, creation, this experience is both light and shadow both. Otherwise, we couldn't really have an experience here. So the first thing we have to do as yogis is to get very clear on this fact. Once we're clear on that, then we can recognize that what we are doing with our meditation practice and with our study of sacred scriptures, what we are doing with our devotion, with our mantras, with our prayers, is we are consistently and always returning our awareness back to our inner light. So we know that in order for there to be shadow, there has to be light. And usually the reason shadows arise is because of an obstruction to that light. In fact, that's why shadows arise, because there's an obstruction to that light. And in the process of creation, way back, way back before time and karma and space, there was and is pure consciousness, pure awareness, in a sense, pure light. But something occurred, and our soul nature decided that it wanted to experience a few things. And it started this whole ball rolling of um, a sense of individuality. We become an individual. We feel like we're no longer um, one with the wholeness of our soul or the wholeness of this awareness in life. And then we develop capacities to see and to hear and to taste and to touch. And then subtle elements arise for us to interact with. And eventually we end up in a world where there are rocks and trees and people and creatures, all so that we can have an experience. And that is where the light and the shadow comes in. That is where the drama comes in. But again, as yogis, it's our goal and our purpose to turn our awareness backwards, to look back inwards, to look back inwards to the presence of our inner light. Yogananda had also said that we should never fear the darkness or beat at it with a stick. What we need to do is turn on the light and it will vanish as though it had never been. So he encourages us never to fear the darkness, nor to beat at it with a stick. Essentially, what he's saying is don't fight it in the way that you give it power over yourself. And when we turn situations into enemies, we are essentially trying to beat the darkness with a stick, and we are giving it a kind of power over ourselves. Now, this isn't to say that we don't aim to make changes in our life when there are difficulties. It doesn't mean that we don't try to improve things. It just means that we don't turn them into these ridiculous problems for ourselves. So, wherever you are in your life, wherever you feel that you have a sense of darkness or a sense of fear or a sense of confusion, the best thing to do is to practice your meditation, your pranayama, so that you can calm down, feel deeply within the body. And of course, sometimes when we feel deeply within the body, we become aware of even more kind of an energetic twist, or we become even more aware of this sense of fear or this difficulty with darkness and confusion. But if you can feel into it and you can breathe and you can do your best to relax, then whatever you're feeling, direct your mind to the divine field. Now, how do you do that? That is specific to you. Some people pray, some people practice a mantra, some people just simply let go and relax into the experience. But what we have to do is learn to feel whatever it is we're feeling, honor and acknowledge whatever it is we see in this world that we consider to be darkness or causes us fear. But then to, if we can, calm down, turn our awareness within, and then again, through prayer, through mantra, through a simple letting go, direct your mind, your attention to the divine radiant field. And that can be very hard in the beginning, but we have to remember that all of this is habitual. People like Yogananda, he had a momentum, he had a strength that he built up over many lifetimes to be able to redirect his awareness back to that field of divinity and back to that field of light. So when he sat down and meditated or prayed, he still struggled a bit. If you read the autobiography of a yogi, you'll see this. But he learned how to do it, how to experience it directly, because he built up the momentum. He exercised his inner energy system in that way. And so if you have trouble with it, just remember that's normal. That's a normal thing. But it is the constant bringing your awareness back to that field of light, moment by moment, day by day, not worrying about whether you fail or succeed, just doing it, that eventually, over months and years, you will be able to tune more into that inner light, that inner awareness, that inner clarity. And fear and this idea of darkness also begins to diminish. And I'm speaking about this from experience because in my own life, particularly early on, I struggled with lots of fear, anxiety, and depression. And once I began practicing Kriya Yoga over a decade or so, I still struggled with it. But I had an anchor, I had a practice that I could engage in to kind of direct me more inward and again back to that sense of inner light. And then after another decade or so, it became easier to settle into that experience of inner support. And I think this is something to keep in mind and to remember. And this is a hard thing to remember, and this is a hard thing to keep in mind, but it's something that is necessary. And that is that whatever you see and experience in the world exists solely for your own illumination. We could really probably spend a whole weekend or even a week exploring this topic and how to attend to it and how to actually feel it and figure it out. But the ancient scriptures and most of the gurus that I know also affirm this, that everything that challenges you is an opportunity for growth, for clarity, or for simply learning a path of surrender. Every difficulty that comes our way, well, let's back up here. The difficulties that come our way that are not uh, self-induced due to our own willfulness, because there are many things that we can do to ourselves which are not good for us, that are not necessarily lessons. They're simply, we just haven't decided to choose a better way. So we're not talking about those things. We're talking about the things that come your way when you've been meditating every day and you've been choosing to live the best life you can. You know, you're eating foods that are nourishing and supportive of you. You're doing your best to exercise and get some movement. You're surrounding yourself with uplifting, kind, positive, pleasant people. You're learning how to navigate and deal with the difficult and stressful people in your lives. So what I'm talking about here is when you have engaged your Kriya Yoga practice such that you are living with the common sense of a Kriya Yogi. And if you want to know what the common sense of a Kriya Yogi is, you can read about that in the Yoga Sutras. This is, this is a not published version, but Continuing the Lineage of Enlightenment. The book looks different. Or An Essential Guide to Kriya Yoga Practice, or any of Roy Eugene Davis's books. 7 Lessons in Conscious Living is a wonderful one. By reading and studying those books and applying these basics, okay, that's when you've taken care of the willful ignorance that you might have. Now, once you've done that, and then things just start happening, political discord, your taxes are too high, someone gets sick, anything that can happen that is not the result of you just simply not following the common sense of what it means to be a Kriya Yogi. Every single one of those experiences are an opportunity to affirm what you are defining yourself by and what you are attuning to. And again, as yogis, our purpose, our mission, our goal in this life is to attune to light, to inner clarity, and to peace. So if you're going through your life and something happens and it's not your fault, you didn't really do anything there, but it happens and you find yourself being thrown off balance, you become depressed, you become angry, you become agitated. Well, that experience is giving you precise information about where your attachments are. And it's giving you precise information about the fact that you are choosing to let the circumstances of the outer world determine your inner light and inner well-being. And we have to go back to Yogananda's quote where he said, "Creation is light and shadow both, else no picture is possible." So what that means is, as long as you are alive, things can go well and things can go very well, but there still has to be light and shadow. So from time to time, and sometimes for long periods of time, there will be some pretty big speed bumps. There will be some pretty big frustrations in your life. But if you remember what I was saying earlier about the fact that everything that is in your experience exists for your own illumination, if you can trust that, and this is where trust and faith comes into play. If you can trust that, it will completely change your experiences of what you think light and what you think darkness is. And I was going to start out this talk. I was going to ask people. I was going to ask, am I talking to yogis today? Or am I talking to sheeple? All right. You know what sheeple are? Sheeple are like people that are like sheep that just follow the flock and just do what everybody else does. And if I'm talking to sheeple, well, then this probably isn't going to be a very popular talk. But if I'm talking to yogis, that's much different because as yogis, we are choosing to live in a much different way. We are choosing to experience life not in the way that, oh, this stuff keeps happening to me. Why does this keep happening to me? Why is God such a jerk? You know, that's how sheeple function. But when we are yogis, every single experience, every single moment is an opportunity of giving us insight into our spiritual growth process. And as yogis, we are also walking a very fine line. We're walking a razor's edge. And so this is often why real yoga is not necessarily that popular because most people don't want to walk that razor's edge. What they want is just a nice, comfortable life. And that's fine. We can have a nice, comfortable life. But as yogis, we are learning to stabilize our energy, our mind, our psychology, our body, so that it is as resilient and healthy and balanced as it can be. And then when we are in the world and we're interacting with the light and the shadow, we see it for what it is. And if you look back to the lives of the great saints and sages, just do a historical evaluation of the times that they lived. How many world wars did Paramahansa Yogananda see, or Ramana Maharshi? Um, how many difficult diseases did these sages observe pass through humanity? Um, how much turmoil did they have interacting with their families at times? I'm just giving this information so that you can see that if you're waiting for the world to be perfect to know what Paramahansa Yogananda knew, to know what the Buddha knew, to know what Jesus knew, any of these enlightened sages, if you're waiting for the world to be perfect for that to happen, if you're waiting for your family to be perfect for that to happen, if you're waiting for your bodies to be perfect for that to happen, you're going to be waiting a long time and you're going to be stuck in this particular state of consciousness. And so this is why it's so important that no matter what, without being foolish, but no matter what, you always look for the light within yourself and within others. And this is a tall order, but let's back up even further. What can we do if we don't really have that capacity right now? What if we're so overwhelmed with situations that we're involved in, or if we're so overwhelmed with situations that we observe? Well, what is really the first step to experiencing and finding and acknowledging and choosing that light over darkness? The first step is to take care of yourself. The first step is to take care of yourself. And those of you who've been in roles where you had to take care of someone who might have been ill or was suffering greatly, could you really be present for them if you yourself were exhausted, worn out, bitter, angry? How well are you able to be with someone in that role if you yourself are struggling? So, and of course, I also know that sometimes in those situations it's hard to take care of yourself. But if you can just intend that at some point throughout the day, you're going to do something to calm yourself down. You're going to breathe for a little while. You're going to walk out in nature and you're going to choose to just simply observe the birds and the trees, or you're going to appreciate the fresh air, or if you like music, you're just going to take a few minutes just to listen to some music that's soothing for you. That's a good step. And watching your diet and making sure you get enough exercise. Again, these are very basic things, but until they are established, you're going to have a really hard time when someone says to you, every single thing that happens to you is for your own good, right? That's essentially what I said when I said every experience is for the illumination of your soul. right? I'm essentially saying everything that happens to you is for your own good. And that doesn't sound very nice, does it? It's true, but it doesn't sound very nice. So, in order to be able to appreciate that, you have to do what you can do for yourself to be as strong, clear, and resilient as possible. Only then will it be easier for you to actually perceive light as it shines through the cracks. Even in the worst situations, there are moments of beauty, there are moments of peace. And if you are not able to be present enough to see them, then you're simply going to see all the darkness and you're going to sink much deeper into despair or anger or frustration and so on. So this is the first part of the practice is taking evaluation of how are you living your life, and have you been able to fill up your own reserves, because you're not going to be able to help someone else if you yourself are struggling in that way. And then again, you have to look for the light. There's a practice called Chitta Prasadam. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it. Last February, we did a whole month, 7 a.m. every morning. We were on Zoom together. A lot of people, actually. It was surprising. And we practiced Chitta Prasadam. And Chitta Prasadam in the Yoga Sutras, it's from chapter 1, verse 33. It's about making the mind serene. It's about making the mind serene, strong, and clear. And in the Yoga Sutras, this is the first step, the first stage in preparing yourself to be able to experience a samadhi state. Okay. So, what is Chitta Prasadam? It is learning to appreciate uh, the happiness of others, no matter who they are, appreciating the happiness of others. That's number one. Number two, it's learning to hold space, to be present with, without strain, those who need compassion. So it's about developing compassion for others and compassion for oneself. And again, it doesn't matter if this person is a friend or a foe, it's everyone. The third part is to celebrate where you see virtue. And that means in your own life and in the lives of others. Whenever you hear someone attempting to make a positive change in their life, maybe I remember I was this way when I was younger and it was terrible. So don't judge me. Well, you can judge me if you want, but I don't do this anymore. So, when I was younger, and if I was, say, on a trail, or maybe I went on vacation, I was at the beach and I saw someone jogging down the beach and maybe they looked like they were out of shape, and I would judge them for it. Now, why would I do that? That's stupid. Well, there's probably many reasons I would do that psychologically, but in the Chitta Prasadam, you would see that and you wouldn't judge them. You would think positive things about this person is making a positive shift in their life. They might look out of shape, but don't judge them for it. They're out here running, they're out here exercising, they're getting some fresh air. That is one way of celebrating virtue in others. When you wake up in the morning or you meditate, celebrate that, because pretty much most of the world is not doing that. When you see someone defending others who are suffering, celebrate that. So the third part is celebrating virtue where it is. And the fourth one is neutrality with the wicked, or with that which is non-virtuous, or what you would consider probably to be darkness, right? So neutrality. So these four things, these four states of mind are to be cultivated to even begin to prepare you for the experience of samadhi, that experience of spiritual realization and harmony. So before you do anything else, you have to start there. And this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the deep psychological change within yourself that will allow you to appreciate your inner light more. It will prepare you to be more resilient as you interact with the light and shadow of life. And it is starting to create the vessel within your mind, within your consciousness, so that you can be receptive to uh, higher realities, so that you can be receptive to that experience of samadhi, so that you can be receptive to that experience of um, spiritual growth in general. So, as you think about your life ahead, you think about today, where there are situations where you perceive there to be darkness or struggle or frustration, again, you don't have to ignore problems. You can admit, my tire went flat. Sure, that's a problem. But you can avoid the narrative that follows about, oh, this is just my bad luck. You can look at it as an opportunity to regulate your mental field, to regulate your emotions. And what you'll find is, as these difficult things come your way and you're better able to regulate and surf over these waves, then you learn how to actually surf bigger and bigger waves. And eventually, people will notice about you that you seem very calm, enlightened, enthusiastic, optimistic. And people will begin to recognize that you actually have a bit of an energy like Paramahansa Yogananda, or you have an energy like a sage that's been working at this for a lifetime. So it's all work, that's for sure. And I would like to say that um, there's a magical key to it all, but there isn't. Even when it comes to grace, grace is there, but we have to learn to be receptive to it. I might have used this analogy before. I heard it recently and I thought it was really wonderful. If we think of grace as though it's like rain, well, rain falls all across the planet. Rain is raining everywhere for the most part. But in some places, the ground has been tilled and fertilized and prepared, and seeds have been planted. And so when the rain falls on that, the garden grows. Whereas all these other places that have not been cultivated at all, we get beautiful nature, we get grass growing, trees, vines, and so on, but nothing coherent in the sense of what we might need as a human being. And so this whole process is essentially you preparing the land of your life, tilling the soil, planting the seeds, fertilizing, so that when grace does fall, as it will fall, things can grow from it. Things that we need, things which are supportive of our path in life, things which will support us on our spiritual path. So after we get done today, we're going to meditate for about a half an hour, maybe 25 minutes or so, because we have the Q&A for the apprenticeship students after this, and I'll need to prepare a little bit. So we'll probably meditate for about 25 minutes. But after we get done, if you have a moment, and I'd really encourage you to take a moment, think about what we've explored and just consider the coming week. Don't go too far out, make it bite-sized and manageable. But think about the coming week and think about your potential experiences you're going to have, or the habitual ways you think and feel about the world. And just reflect upon it, even write it down. As I go into this coming week, what are ways that I can choose this light over darkness? Or what are activities that I can do that will prepare myself to be able to appreciate the light that is there? And if you do that, if you're intentional about it, you're going to be more likely to be successful. And then after that week passes, you will feel much better. You will feel much clearer, much more supported. And if you keep doing it week to week to week, probably in a year, if you do it for a full year, it will become such a habit for you that it'll actually be harder for you to be bogged down by your perceptions of darkness, and you'll naturally feel the sense of supportive light within your life. So that's my goal for you for this week and beyond. But let's take some time to meditate.